See, the full selectors are like selectors having the window selector along with the element. And the partial selector will not have the window selector in the element, like it will be elements and selector elements as well as in the same page. Elements from the other page, not from the other page, it will be from the same page, right? The page will not be changing. See, the only difference is, if you see here, right, this is full selector where we have the application name as well, but this application name and the window level selector will go with the attached browser, which is a container, and you have the element specific selector. Here, this is your element specific selector, and which is this. The window selector is this. So in case of full selector, you will have the element, the window selector and also element selector. But in terms of partial selectors, you will have only the specific selector to that particular element, that we call it as a partial selector. If you see here, expand this, if you see here, right, you see that, but this is got disabled. And when you say control here, you will be selecting only the specific element selector. You cannot select the above one, which means this is not as part of this activity, and this is targeting to that particular element, and you have only that particular selector. Whereas your Windows level selector will go with the attached brochure. If you come here, you can see your Windows level selector here, and you can say control here, and you can select it, which means the window level selector will go with this attached browser, and the element specific to that particular selector specific to that element will go with this activities. So which is advantage? Which selector is preferred? Partial or full? So what is your thoughts, guys? Which selector is preferred, partial or a full? It is always suggested to have partial selectors wherever is possible. What is advantage? Performance, which is nothing but the speed of execution. You will not identify much, but when you have multiple actions, then you can easily differentiate the speed of execution. I'll tell you the reason. In case of if you have full selector, right, you have window plus element. So you need to identify the window and also element based on the selector. Like you have the window selector and the element selector as well. So you need to identify both window and element selector. So you are already identified the window based on the container, which means attached browser or attached window. Just need to identify element inside the window, which means, see, in terms of full selector, right, each and every activity will have your window selector and the element selector. So which means first you need to identify, your robot need to identify the window and then to the element. But here in the partial selector, what will happen is, because of this attached browser or attached window, your window is already identified, and inside that you need to identify the elements. So when you have multiple actions, right, here you have two actions. So in these two actions, the window is already identified and you just need to target the element here and here. And it's not necessary for you to look for an window. But here, if you see, right, here you have this and here you have this two actions. And here in this action, you need to identify the window and the element. Here you need to identify the window and element. So which means here in each and every activity, you are trying to identify your window. Whereas in the partial selectors, when you have the containers, you're already inside of your window, which is identified, and you are just targeting your element, searching for your element. So which means like you are reducing the identification of a window when you are going with the partial selectors. Clear, guys? Are you clear with this? And let us see. So we have seen that in the web-based, right? Now let us do one thing. Stop. That's fine. And also new sequence. Got it. So let me do one thing. Later, what I want to do in the basic recording is I'll go with the basic recording. Record. And exit. Here in this basic recording, if you see the selectors, right? Then your element. So you have everything. The applications and all application level selectors and the element also. Let me cancel this. And the same thing, what we are going to do is we are going to do from the desktop recording. Sorry. We perform the same actions, but if you see here, right, you got the attached window activity here, and inside of those activities, here, right, the first line is disabled, which means which is related to your calculator. And if you say here, process your element window. So this is how the every recording is inside, every activity is inside of your. Let me do one thing. Let me run this basic recording. This is started at 24:49 and it was ended at 24:58. the difference. See, actions are same, exactly same what we are performing, and you have seen, right, like the same keys we are pressing and everything, and there is a difference of 2 seconds execution time between these two. When you are using only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, when you are using 8 actions, the difference of execution is 2 seconds. In case if we are using more actions, difference will be high, which means like with only 8 actions, if you are seeing that like there is a 2 minutes difference by using the only the full and partial selectors. Here I can say execution. Partial selectors, execution. Here, that is the difference we have seen. Yes, speed is also matters. It's not always. What actually matters is the accuracy. In RPA, always we look for the accuracy. Speed of execution will be second priority. Yes, first priority is accuracy. In RPA, speed of execution is also matters, but the speed of execution will be your second priority, whereas your first priority is accuracy. Got it, Akash? Matters, but not always. Like your first priority will be always accuracy, but the speed is also matters, right? Because you want to complete your task as fast as you can. And remember, the people might be thinking that robot is much faster than human, but the answer is robot is just 10% faster than human on an average. Don't think that like the robot will go with a light speed. It is just 10 minutes faster than a human, but the advantage is robot can work with same efficiency 24/7, whereas human can't even work for 8 hours with same efficiency. Yeah, are you clear about these things? And you got the point right here. Why we always prefer to go with the full selectors. Sorry, partial selectors or not full selectors. Got the reason, right? Why partial selectors are like speed and all, like we have seen the difference. Are we clear about this? Let me do one thing. Yeah, someone is asking a question. Akash, you're asking a question.
No, I just want to say basically, yes, yeah, we understood the concept. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Now we will go with something. We have automated this calculator, right? And let me do one thing. Let me re-execute this. Was it working fine? Let me close and reopen the calculator again. Let me try to run the same workflow again. It's working as expected. Fine. It is working fine. I thought like there will be some difference. Okay. Let us do one thing. We have seen the speed of execution here, right? And partial selectors. Let me execute the full selectors by making some changes, okay, in each of the activity. But before that, let us just clearly focus how the execution is happening and how the mouse cursor is moving. Mouse cursor is going and clicking on the buttons, and you can see the mouse cursor moving, right? So let me do one thing. Let me go to a property. Let me just check this simulate click to true in all the activities. Let me run this flow, and you see how the execution is going to happen. I kept the mouse cursor at the left side. Just focus on the mouse cursor. The mouse cursor is not moving, and your execution is happening. You saw that, right? And the execution completed in just 5 seconds. Let me do one thing. Default click. Click. What difference you have identified between the simulate click and the default click? So what did you identify the difference between these two? Mouse cursor, right? Guys, are you following it?
Yeah, Path, yeah.
Yeah. And here in the simulate click, mouse cursor is not moving, right?
Correct, yes.
And the execution is slow, execution is fast. So there is So there is the speed of execution difference. If you see here, right? See here, by changing from the full to the partial, it is only 2 minutes fast, 2 seconds faster. But here, by changing from default click to the simulate click, it is 4 seconds faster. And in case if I use the same simulate click in the partial selector, let us see the different speed of execution. And also, right, see, I cannot go to each and every activity and I change it to simulate every time. So let me do one thing, how we can manage this at one place. Go to the project settings, go to the UI automation, classic, because we use the classic activities. And here you will be having events. See here, send Windows message, simulate click, and the simulate hold. So I'll go with simulate click true and I click on OK. And now if I come here, right, it will be changed to true. Let us see whether it has got changed or not. It didn't. Let me see why the reason. Ideally it should change. Simulate to true. Let me close this and reopen. True, yeah. Let us run this and see. No, it is not working out. See why the reason is. See, it doesn't matter the screen resolution as far as you got the selectors. In case if you are using the image, then that screen resolution matters. But when you are using the selectors, it doesn't matter. I'll show you that as well. Let us see.
So Parth, basically why simulate click is giving the fast result as compared to the
That I'll explain.
okay.
I just want to compare the different properties of these actions, and then we will have a detailed discussion on it. Okay. See, it should ideally it should go with the project settings, and let me see why it is not happening. Kept it to where is the most events? Kept it to true. Let me change it here as well. So let me see. So you asked one thing, right? Resolution matters or not? So I changed it to the maximize window, which means your resolution, like your application is also changing, right? So your application is also not in the previous size. It was got changed. So as far as you are identifying the selectors, so it doesn't matter how it is going on. And let me do one thing. Let me manually change everything here for now. And I'll check it out like why it is not getting reflected, though I'm changing it at the project level settings, and I'll update you guys. Generally, ideally it should change, but it is not happening. I'll identify the reason and I'll let you know. So let me run this desktop application. The mouse cursor is not moving again because we identified simulate, right? And let me see the execution time. It is 5 seconds, which is similar to this. There is no change, but the execution is comparatively fast, right? And we have one more property here, right? Let us go to the basic only. We could able to identify much more, differentiate more. So there is one more property under the clip. If you see right here, we have one more property which is send Windows messages. I just want to mark it as true. Then I got the validation error because it needs to be either of these two. It cannot be both. So I need to uncheck this. You come here, test true. Let me run this now. I'm not moving. Just observe the cursor as well. Even in this scenario also, 1 second, where it is going wrong. Somewhere with 9, something is not changed. It is working out. I got the reason now. See, if you see here, right, previously this is nothing. Nothing was identified, like it was not true, not false. And if you see here, right, in case if we are not giving anything, then whatever we have given at the project level settings will be considered, which means here we kept it as true, simulate click. So which means if we are keeping that empty, then it is saying it will consider whatever we have given here. And if it is by default false there, then it will not apply this. So that is the reason for which we got an error when this was empty. Now we have modified it, right? So it will not take that. I'll show you that again. I'll show you that again. Everything is false. Okay. Only this one is considered to be default, and now we changed everything to false, and at the project level also we changed. For now the execution will happen. Let us run this, and I'm just keeping this mouse cursor left side. What happened? Execution was not happening. Which means the send Windows message is not working for this. Works well for all the applications. Supports maximum percentage of applications. Supports limited applications. So we just need to make sure that which type of click activity is working well, either simulate click or send Windows. In majority of the cases, this will work. And in some cases, for some applications, it will not work for this and it will work for this. So we will check for these two, and then if both are not working, then we'll go with the default click. And I'll show you the features of this as well. But for now, I'm just writing the features. Like, see, when we are dealing with applications, right, actual applications, faster than default and slower than simulator. So just keep this in mind, and I'll show you how this send Windows message is also working when we are dealing with different applications. Okay, and here I just want to show you one thing, guys. So I'm just putting this as a default. Okay, the first activity itself. Just click button 8, and in this, what I will do is I'll just come here under the classic and mouse events. I'll just mark it as true. This can be debug is false and runtime is because we are running the application. So when I run this, now it will throw an error that it cannot have both. See here, click button 8, only one of the simulate click and send Windows messages option can be set. And if you come here, the properties, this is default and this is set to true. Okay. And if I intentionally kept it false, this will work. So because even the 9 is also default. So this is how the project level settings will work. In case if I kept it intentionally false, and it will work. And for now, what I want to do is I'll just uncheck this send Windows message and I'll go with simulate click, and I want to show one more thing. I'll just mark it as false and I'll just keep this as default, false and default, which means I'm taking the simulate click property from the set project level settings, and this I'm just putting as false, and we can just turn this also to default. It's up to us, but we doesn't want this to be true. And let me just put this in this way. This is on my top window, right? And let me run this workflow. So which means without moving the cursor, it is taken from the project level settings when we have a default property turned on. Okay. Is everything clear, guys, till now? The properties simulate these two properties, at least you should be clear. And this we'll see when we are dealing with actual web applications and all, and you'll get to know about this. Or some desktop applications, it depends. Like wherever we are working, I'll show you this as well. But you got this clarity, right? Between these two. And let me now, you asked for a question. Why the simulate click is faster? And also one more question. Why the mouse cursor is not moving here and why it is moving here? Here, default click will uses the hardware of your system. Hardware in the sense hardware driver of your system, which means like it will be utilizing explicitly your mouse. That is the reason for which the cursor is moving. And when you are using a driver, that comes into the picture and it will take some time, right? But here in simulate click will simulate the action to be performed on the element, which means it directly interacts with the application and it will not use your hardware driver. This also will not use your hardware driver. will send the message to operating system to perform the action on the desired element. So these are the difference. These are the reasons for which these two are faster and little faster. And here your operating system is coming into the picture. It is bit relatively slow compared to your simulation. And here you are using the hardware driver. So that is the reason for which it is much more slower. And this will work for all the applications because it is like using your hardware and it is perfectly mimicking the human. Whereas these are like interacting with your operating system or interacting directly with your application element. That is the reason for which it is may not support all type of we say applications. In maximum cases this will work, but this will supports very limited applications. We just need to make sure which type of click is supporting you, which type of input method is supporting you, and you are going to have this. And the people will ask about like explain the input methods. When they are saying input methods, it's not input and output methods of UiPath. It is input method means this one, these three. We need to give the difference. Okay. Here, everyone. Yeah. So guys, we'll break for 8 minutes and then we'll circle back again at 11 o'clock exactly. And guys, if you don't have any work, right, we may continue for half an hour more as well. If everyone is fine, and I want answers from everyone. Other folks, because I don't know about your schedules after like the time which we already committed, right, 11:30. So I want to know the everyone's comfortness and then to extend because we missed a couple of sessions because of some or other reason. So let me know your comfortness, guys. Okay, well, I'll be back at exactly 11 o'clock, and by that time, just let me know you have some work. Okay, then we'll close this at 11:30 and make sure that like at least for tomorrow, if you can spend half an hour more, then we will continue tomorrow. It's not a problem. Okay. Okay, guys, let us circle back at 11. So before we go for UI automation, right, I just want to explain a couple of things to you guys, which are the most common properties of UI automation, because we have a lot of properties here and almost 90% or 80% activities what we have in the click activity will be common for each and every UI automation activities. So we will cover these things and then we will go for the other things. Just give me a minute, guys. I just so the majority of the properties what we have here, right, it will be common for almost 80% will be common for the other activities in the UI automation. Okay. First, let us go one after the other. And we have continue on error, delay after, delay before, and display name. This display name and the continue on error will be common for almost 90% of the activities what we are using, irrespective this continue on error specifically, irrespective what type of activity we are using. And the display name is common for every activity. And the display name, we can just modify it and click it here. Click multiply. When you just click outside of it, this name will be changed. And it is not only for the click activities, even for the sequences also, you can just modify it. And this renaming of activities is right. This will be much more useful for us in terms of the debugging of your workflows. In case if any error occurred, right, it will be reflected with the display name. And as per the best practice, we need to always rename your display names, and we should not keep the default names of any of your activities. So let us go with step by step. Yes. Error. Which means if any error occurred, activity will throw an error. Your workflow will not be executed further, and the next activity execution won't happen. Which means if any error occurred, then your activity will throw an error so that your next execution will not happen. We have seen, right? Like we got an error, like either only one of the things needs to be there, and it didn't execute the next set of activities. In case if this property set to true, only this activity will not execute as error occurred of your workflow execution will happen. Which means in case if any error is occurred, then your next set of activities will execute. Okay, clear guys? You're clear about this, right? You can have true, false, and the default. And in case if you have a default, right, then it will refer to your project settings. Where is that? We'll see that later. And we have delay after, delay before. Delay after is what amount of milliseconds a robot will wait after executing this activity, which means it's a fixed delay time where the robot will wait after executing of this particular activity, and the time will be specified in the milliseconds. You come here, right? Delay time in milliseconds. The default is 300, and the default can be changed from here. Delay before and delay after. Okay. And delay before is time the robot will wait before executing this activity in milliseconds, and the default time will be 300, and the default can be changed from. Is it clear now? The default time can be changed from here. See here, it showed like 300 milliseconds, right? Delay after, and the delay is 200. It was specified here. If I put the cursor here, it is saying that the default amount of time is 200 milliseconds. Let me go here and let me go to the classic activities, and let me change this to 500. 500. 500.
I mean, any particular reason why we are mentioning 500?
See here, we didn't specify any time, right? And by default time is 300 milliseconds and 200 milliseconds. And here, if I change it to 500 right here, then when you are executing your workflow, these milliseconds will be taken into the consideration, not the default 300 and 200. And in case if we are giving some value here, like 1000 and 1000, it will consider this value because this will overwrite your project settings, and your project settings will override your by default values.
Got it.
Yeah. So is it same with everyone? Like Srikanth is saying that he cannot hear my voice. Is it same with everyone?
No, we can hear you.
Yeah, Srikanth, please check your internet connection, man. I think there is something problem with your internet. So let me do one thing here. Let me just specify one more point, like based on your question. Every property will have a default value specified by the platform, and that default value will override project level default value specified under project settings, and the project default value will be by will be overwritten by. Everyone is hearing properly, man. They are responded. Actual value specified in the properties. So why we have in this ways, like in case if we didn't specify something, and it will take the default values, and for each project level you can modify your default values, and specific to that value you can give your required value. So this is how this will work. So everyone is clear about this?
Yeah.
So which means like at the platform level you have one default value, and later you have project level the default value you can set, and even for the activity level you can modify your specified value to wait for that particular time or a desired value, whatever you have.
Hi, Patrudu.
Yeah.
I can't hear your voice not properly. I can't hearing.
Please check your earphones or Bluetooth, man, because everyone is hearing. and only you are facing the issue. Like, please check your or rejoin. Okay. Because I'm going with bit low volume voice because I was in office. Yeah. So now the next activities is click type and the mouse button. This is specific to only the click activity. This activity, see all the three above three we have, right? This will be common for all the UI automation activities. But this input, right, the click type and the mouse button is specific to click activities. Okay. So this is to specify what type of click you want to perform, which means single, double, and also we have other click down and click up. I'll explain you why click down and click up is there, and click up. Okay. So what type of click you want to perform? Single click, double click, and the click down and click up is when you are dragging and dropping or something. Like if you want to select it, you'll be clicking this button and you'll be holding it and you'll be releasing that after selection, right? So whatever you have done at the C is click down, which means you are holding the click and you are moving your cursor, and after N you are releasing your click, which is click up. So it will click and it will hold the click, and when you are saying click up, then you will be releasing it. So that's the reason for which you have these two. So to move that also, right, in this way you have another activity which is hover, which means like it will just move your mouse cursor. It will not do anything, it will just move your mouse cursor. So when you just use the click activity with click down and you use the hover and you use the click activity with click up, which means this selection will done. And you can do the drag and drop of some activity on UiPath as well with the help of that. And we will see that as well, like how we are going to do it. Because there will be some scenarios, right, when you may need to scroll something. In that cases, you will be leveraging these properties. And the mouse button is specify which button to be used. So you can say left, right, and middle. Some scenarios you may need to use your click on your mouse cursor, scroll button as well, right? That will become your middle. So based on what you want to perform, you can select these options. These two options are specific to your activity. Clear, guys? Queries on this? Perfect. And what is the next activity? See, this is much more important property of your activities in any of the UI automation, which is target. What do you have? Clipping region. Element. Selector. Remote. Wait for ready. Okay. So it will be always target. It will not be null. Well, because you are using the UI elements or a selectors, right? So if you see this right clipping region, you have the left, right, top, right, and the bottom. You just need to give the values. Which means it will go with the coordinates. Which the UI action need to be performed. Why I'm saying UI action, not the click is, it can be for typing of some text or reading of some text, or it can be sending of your heart, like enter button or something. So anything can happen. So that's why I'm saying UI action need to be performed. And when you are giving this clipping region, the coordinates, right, that will be a challenging thing, which means like in case if your application or resolution changed, it will not throw any error. What will perform the action on a wrong element? It will perform the action in a different element because it doesn't know what element you're on which element you are performing. It knows only the coordinates from the left top corner. It doesn't matter. See, let us suppose if you have given the home button coordinates and if you resized it, it will click on this because it knows the coordinate of this. It doesn't know whether you're trying to click on home or something. So we should not prefer this unless and until you didn't find the selectors. Then you may can select this, but for that you need to make sure that your screen resolution is not changing and your application will be in the same state all the time. In case if it is a maximized window, you need to be in the maximized window, and if it is a minimized window, you need to be in the minimized window. So that is how this will work. And always avoid of going with the clipping region. Just make sure that like you have this option also available in case if you didn't find any selector. Okay. And the selector, you know the selector, right? Element we will discuss. Just hold on for a while. You know the selector, right? The selector is nothing but HTML or CSS or any of the front end language will generate selectors, the combination of tags which describes the elements on your application page. Based on which robot will identify the element performs the action. And here, in case if you are resizing your application or your screen resolution is changing, and it doesn't matter, it will clearly and perfectly identifies the element and it will perform the action. If such an element is not available, it will throw an error. So this is the selector, like where the robot is going to identify your elements based on this selector. And the timeout. So when we say the timeout, maximum that the robot will wait for the element to available on the screen. Why I am saying the maximum time for that particular element to available on the screen is when you are navigating from one page to the other page, right? And you are navigating from one page to other page, there will be a time taking for the new page to come up and the elements to available. So the robot needs to wait for the loading of the new page, and then it needs to perform the action. The default is seconds. 1 second, it's not 3, I guess 30 seconds. Yeah, 30 seconds. And it is also in the milliseconds, and it will have 30 seconds is the maximum time that the robot will wait. And we can even modify that. You can give like 100 seconds. It's up to us based on the target application. It is taking time. When you go with some Salesforce application or some Oracle application, right? Any web application, it will take some time for the loading of the page based on the server and all these things. So in that scenarios, we will increase the time. And what is the advantage of this timeout is, let us suppose if your element is available in 1 second, it will go. It will not wait for 30 seconds. Okay. So to avoid the fixed delays, we will be using this timeout. So what will happen is, let us suppose if the element is available in 5 seconds, we'll go to next activity. It will execute the activity and will go for next activity. If it is not available in 30 seconds, see this, I'm considering that we are not given any value. In case if we give some value, right, then that will override this existing 30 seconds. So I'm just considering the default value. Then the activity this is the importance of this timeout. And there will be a question, what is the difference between timeout and the delay, or what is the advantage of timeout? That question will be asked. Okay, so this is about the timeout. And here, wait for ready, none, interactive. So there are 3 properties here of our wait for ready. If you see here, right, none, interactive, complete. So there is an importance for these activities and these properties. Let me just put in this way. None means just it will wait for the element to be available, and then it will perform the action. Means as soon as the element is available, it will perform the action. It will wait for the element to, means it will wait for that particular element to load, and then it will perform the action. So because when your load, like when your landing page is coming, when you're opening any application, right, you'll see that something is getting rotated here, which is loading, and one after the other the elements will be loaded, and before loading also that element will be appeared. and immediately it will click on this none. In case if you select this none, right, as soon as this is available, it will click. It will not wait for this particular open capture to get readily available. And complete is will wait for the complete page to load, which means all elements to be loaded, which means it will wait for the complete page to be loaded and all your pages stable enough. So which is preferred? I always prefer to go with complete. Reason is when your page is loading, though your element is readily available, if you click on that element, right, there might be a possibility of going into no responding mode for an application. There is a possibility that application will go into no responding mode. You have seen, right, the no responding will be appear on your top of your window and it will not even allow you to close that. It will wait for a longer time. In case if we perform any actions before the page is completely loaded, for some applications in an intermittent, which means it is not like every time, it may happen. To avoid such scenarios, I always go with this complete. Are you clear about all this? Wait for ready, because people will ask for this question, because this is much more important, right, to stabilize your automation, UI automation. So are you clear about all these properties till now? Everyone, guys? Perfect. So
Parth,
yeah.
basically, this type of question interview are supposed to ask for this type of basically different activity.
They will not ask anything, like they'll simply ask like, you have a property wait for ready. Can you just explain the importance of that? They may or may not specify your activity name, because this wait for ready is applicable for all the UI actions. Whatever the UI action activities you have, right? Like the type into or hover, set text, get text, all these activities. We will discuss all those activities. We may not discuss those activities individually, but we will just do. Okay, Sri, we are also closing. I was like about to complete this, and you can drop off and refer to the previous videos, man. Yeah. So we will just do some use cases kind of thing, and then we will get to know about the activities. I don't want to specifically go activity by activity. That's why I'm explaining all these things is these are common for all the UI activities. So you must know about these properties to do the automation. Only the activity names and the action we are going to do may change, but the properties will be same. Okay. And we will do one, like, clear, Akash? Hello. Yeah. So we left only one property here, right? So we will take this up today, because I just want to close all these target properties today, and then we will continue with the next. So why I kept it off is, let me just pull one more activity and element. I'll just identify the screen. And if I go to the, I'll just see, you have all the properties common. But if you see, right, this is have an output argument. There is an output from this. I'll just hit Control K, UI element. And it is having the selector to identify the element, and it is going to return you UI element. If I go to the variables, a UI element variable is created with the type UI element, which is UiPath.core.UI element. Okay, and I have this element object, and I want to perform a click activity. And here I don't want to identify on a screen. What I will do is I'll just put UI element. You see here, right? It doesn't require the selector. And let me run this workflow. Let me just type something like this, okay? And now let me run this. See what is happening. It clicked on the C button, which means you identified that with a find element, and that output of that is UI element, and we can use that UI element as your target, and you can perform the UI actions. UI element object retrieved from another activity. It can be find element or find children. We have a couple of these two activities, and we can use this object instead selector perform the actions on that particular element. Okay, which means this we can use the UI element object, which will be like, even that object will be returned from a different activity based on selector only again, but we can utilize this. And you can have only either the UI element object or the selector. You cannot have both, because it will create a confusion to the robot. See, only one of these two needs to be have. We cannot have both, because that will create a confusion. And till now we completed till this target, and we will continue with the options tomorrow. And even these also, like, couple of things will be common for UI automations, and we will see like what are the differences. If we have something with some other activities, then we will be discussing them when we are dealing that particular activities. And probably once we complete these properties, right, and we'll start with some sample use case how the UI automation can happen. And we have a couple of other things to cover, and that we will cover as far as like as and when we came across that, like wildcards, fine tuning of selectors, have all these scenarios which needs to be covered, and we will cover all of them as part of like whenever we are dealing with those. Okay.
Sure.
Clear, guys?
So I think we missed the fuzzy selector as well, right? Fuzzy selector is there.
Fuzzy selectors we will not cover as part of the classic design, and we are going to have only one session on the modern design. We will not focus much on it, because see, if you know the classic design and classic automations, and you know how to use the activities, right, it will be much more easy for you to start with and continue with the modern design. So we will have only one session or two sessions on the modern design concepts, and there we are going to cover the fuzzy selectors. Fuzzy selectors will not come under the classic design. And first we are going to do some use cases First, let us understand the complete UI automation, and then we will go with the modern design, and then there we are going to discuss about fuzzy selectors, strict selectors, and all those things.
Correct. Yeah, agree.